Good morning.
Good morning.
And I'm going to share a memory which always stays about you. Is it okay if I share that?
Okay.
So I was audience in a mock exam where you were sitting as a CTA mock examining.
I see.
And Saru was there, our teacher.
Okay.
And there were 4 examiners in the stage.
Uh-huh.
And then Saru told, okay, Maya, you have to imagine these 4 people as one person as cloth stainer and one person as Jack Tuesday, another person as Fanata English and another as Petruska. Then, okay, she was putting the mask of all big stalwarts of TA to the examiners. And then very quietly you said, Saru, can I have the permission to be Eric Byrne?
I see. I don't even remember that. Yes, but I love it.
From then, I have been a fan of you.
Thank you.
I was thinking of asking you, who's Maya and her family? It's about who you are. If I can hear an introduction from your side and through you, it'll be great.
Yeah, you want the story of how I joined for, well, I've had a very checkered history, let me put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I believe when I was born, an astrologer told my mother that this child is going to wander in the streets, like in Tamil, Teruvile narandu poidu vandirundha koyude, to wander in the streets. So everybody apparently was very worried. But what it turned out was that I went to a lot of places in the world. I was very well traveled. I had the opportunity and the luck. Yeah, because first of all, my father was in the police forces in Tamil Nadu. We went to all the small places, which are now become big places. Vellore, Kadapa, Kadalur, Salem, Madurai, Coimbatore, all those places I've been to. I counted that I have lived in 18 houses after I got married. Not even counting before, 18 houses. This is my 18th house after marriage. I have studied in 3 different schools. I have studied in, 6 different schools, 3 different colleges. And after I got married, my husband extended my traveling abroad. Till then, I was traveling within India. So when you look at that, that was what the astrologer said. But the funny thing is that, in this, what is it called? The injunctions and drivers, thing about traveling, that you feel uncomfortable because you have traveled so much. For me, it was the other way around. You put me in the middle of the desert, I will manage there.
Wow.
I love traveling. And I've been to some wonderful places like Cuba, Afghanistan, all the places in Indonesia where they have strange customs. I've gone to some of those places. And within India, I have traveled a lot actually. But of course, not as much as I would like to, but now my traveling days are over now. But I have written about them. I have shared my experiences with photographs, with slides. So I've given illustrated talks. I love doing that. I love sharing my experiences.
Wow. Maya, can you tell about your books?
Yeah, as you know, I told you, I think that I've always loved writing, and I've been writing and publishing since I was 19. And when I was in Singapore, I got interested I'm very interested in history, social aspects of history, not just the dates and the wars and the battles. So I did a small talk on the history of Singapore, old Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah, how Singapore evolved, and particularly who were the people who came to settle in Singapore, and what did they give to Singapore? Like the Indians who came, the areas, where did they settle? Why did they settle there? For example, sometimes you have, say somebody is, there's a butchery. So now next to the butchery, there will be a shop which makes leather goods. So people brought their animals to be slaughtered. And then you had a group of people who were interested in leather goods who came and settled there. And so the British now brought a lot of gardeners with them, particularly to Bangalore, because the weather was so good. So many of the Tamil-speaking people who are very good gardeners came with them. So, the areas where they settled in and why, the social aspect of it. I had given a talk, and then Oxford University Press, there was someone from Oxford University Press who was listening in the audience. And she came and she said, would you like to write a book on that? I said, yeah, I've always wanted to write a book. So I think I was 50 or something like that. And I wrote that book. Then they asked me to write another book on Jakarta because I lived in Jakarta also. So I wrote a book on Jakarta. And then we came back here and somebody said, nobody's written a book on Bangalore. So why don't you write one? I said, sure, I don't know anything about Bangalore, but that's one good way of finding out. I'm Chennai born and bred. So that's how I wrote 2 books on Bangalore and 2 on Jakarta and Singapore. So I look at it from that angle, from the immigrant angle. What does an immigrant go through? How does he adjust to the culture? How much of his culture should he insist is there? Very interesting.
Thank you. Such wonderful books.
And where, if one has to look at these, your writings or photographs, is there any place you have recorded so that the viewers can look if they want?
I haven't actually. My children are looking into that and trying to make it into a digital collection. But I have them all, in my files. I have been writing since I was 19 years old, Geethan. Loved writing. I love writing still, except for three years after COVID. I got a very bad attack of COVID. I was in ICU for 1 week. And then after that, I stopped writing for 3 years. I had writer's block. Now I've started again.
Oh, okay. And your father was a policeman. What inspired you to be a writer?
What made me want to write?
Yeah.
For one thing, I was a very lonely child. Even though we are 4 of us, I went off to school, different schools, much older than them. In Tamil Nadu, there were some schools which were Indian, some schools which were still junior Cambridge. So I moved from school to school, but I had and because of that, I didn't have too many friends. I was left to my own resources. I started reading, and my father really encouraged me to read. So reading and then writing, and he would argue with me. He would look at my articles and say, you haven't used the correct word. And, there's a 5% difference. He would bring out all his dictionaries and correct me. Grew up with that love of the language. And even now I love language. And that's one of the reasons why I got into counseling, strangely, because I was a teacher. See, my father wanted me to become a doctor. Very far-sighted, even for those days. He would have been 110 had he been alive now. So he said, my 3 girls must study as much as my son.
Wow.
Yeah, and all of us went to graduate school. But he wanted me to become a doctor because he said, in case anything happens to you, to your husband, you need to be independent. Those days. So he said, doctor is a clean job for a woman. You don't have to go, you can stay in a hospital and you can have a good life and all that kind of thing. But I hated medicine. I cut up my first frog, my first earthworm, and I collapsed. I fainted. Because, it's just dead. It's supposed to be dead, but it's still beating the heart. So it's terrible. I don't want to do this. So he was very disappointed. Then he said, okay, then you do economics. I said, I don't want to do economics. I want to do English literature. He said, what do you get from English literature? You can be a doctor, you can be a teacher, or you can be a journalist. You won't get any money. But I decided that I was going to do it, and I did it. And look at the script, Geethan. So he wanted me to heal bodies, right? I didn't refuse to heal bodies. But then later on, I became a teacher. And then after I became a teacher, I loved the interaction with students. After I became a teacher, the head of my department said, Maya, you react very well with students. Why don't you do a counseling course?
Oh.
So lucky to meet people who have guided me, you know. That time we decided to come back to India. We were outside India. And we wanted to come back because my parents were getting old. And I wanted to come back, and my husband said, yes, it's time we went back. I came here and I did a counseling course with Vishwas, and I loved it. Then I met Saru, then I decided to do the TA. And, you know, I used my words, which I loved. And the rapport with the students stood me in good stead. So that was it. That's, as they say, is history. I love what I'm doing.
So Maya, when we come to your age, like for example, if I come to your age, what is the wisdom I need to carry? What is your advice for me, of our viewers?
Well, this wisdom is given to me by somebody else. It's not my own, but that doesn't matter. I was able to pick it up, and I'm able to use it, and I'm able to impart it. When you ask questions like this, we don't realize that every minute we can show someone something. For example, like when I told her I'm getting old and I won't be able to move around, but I still want to do something because I've been so lucky in my life.
You told her, who's it? Her means Saru, you're talking?
Saru, yeah.
Okay.
I asked Saru, I said, what can I do? And she said, you don't have to do anything. You can just be yourself. And what you have got after all these years of experience, you want to spread happiness. So when you go for a walk and you meet someone, the same street or some other street, you just smile at that person, you're imparting the joy of living. You know, and she looks at your smile and momentarily her joy is also increased. And she will pass it on to somebody else because she's become happy. So I thought that was a very wise thing to say and to listen to.
Wonderful. And you have put that in practice, like walking, just smiling at people.
Yeah, absolutely. Say good morning and how are you? You know, there's a dog, you pick up the dog and say, what a sweet dog. It lightens up everybody's day. So happiness is an emotion. It can be fleeting. It's like, you know, it's like a butterfly. You hold it in your hand and it just flies away in no time. You can't hold it. But joy is a state of mind. And it is there. So that spirit of joy that God has given us, or whoever it is has given us so much, why not we appreciate it? And that is joy, the joy of living.
Wow. Okay. So joy is rooted.
Yes.
And happiness is fleeting.
Fleeting, yes.
And you said this is a state of mind. And you also said for 15 years you have been managing Parkinson.
Yeah.
And in COVID you had a severe attack. So what is the state of mind with which you managed that?
I don't know. You know, sometimes when people ask me that, and my husband has dementia. He's had dementia for the last 15 years. It's been very slow. And lots of things. See, I've never seen anyone with dementia, so I didn't even know that. But that has taught me a lot. Manage even, sometimes it's difficult to manage even a state of mind. Because, you know, there are days when, for example, you see this man who was so virile and so dynamic. Everything suddenly, it's a very cruel disease. Suddenly you can't remember. He only remembers me. He doesn't remember anybody else, even his children or his grandchildren or anything. But you know, here again, I have been so blessed, Geethan, because it could have been much worse. I have been very lucky because I've got wonderful people to care for him. I have a caregiver who adores him. That's John. Actually, John is my husband's caregiver. almost like a member of the family.
Hmm.
And children have taken it beautifully. Sad. And I have been given the opportunity in my career to use that whatever knowledge I got from about these diseases. Like I've started a small support group for Parkinson's patients or people whose spouses or whoever is having Parkinson's.
Wow.
Yeah. And only 10 people. I don't want more because I can't handle more. But we just share experiences. And sometimes they come, sometimes they don't come. That's fine with me. And maybe somebody will know something, some resource which is not known to other people. So that has been a really lucky thing for me.
Wow. So what I see is, yes, sometimes life situations are odd.
Yes. Cruel sometimes, not just odd.
Yeah, cruel. But how to absorb it and see how you could make a difference for self and other people in that situation.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
There are times when, I get up and I think, God, what on earth? Why did this happen? And we both, healthy people, we both looked after ourselves very well. But you can't argue with these things, right? Who do you argue with?
Yes.
There are people who are much worse. Of course, I've never liked the idea of feeling better by comparing somebody who's worse. I don't think that's fair. Yeah. But other than that, I've had a good life. I'm surrounded by my books. You can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Surrounded by your books. Yeah.
I love books.
Yeah. And I think your books were a companion, and I feel very strong in my heart your experience. Because sometimes if I have a headache, then I think of taking immediate pill and other things. But
Correct.
Okay, if Maya can manage so much, maybe I reconsider how I'm managing my life situations.
Well, that's nice. Nice to hear.
So you have inspired me today to have a different view towards my life also. Thank you, Maya. And you mentioned about your daughter, grandchildren. Can you give a brief about your family?
Yeah, sure. We have 2 daughters, and surprisingly, they both become politicians.
Oh, okay.
In America. My younger daughter, who's now 58, was the first Indian American to have been elected to Congress. The first Indian American congresswoman, as they call it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And especially now, last 2-3 days, because they're debating the debt ceiling in America. There's a lot of her around. Her name is Maya Jayapal. And we never expected her to become because we are not a political family at all. And my father, though, especially because he was a police officer, he didn't want to go anywhere near politics. He wanted to be totally impartial outside that. But anyway, she tried all kinds of things. Her script was also very strong. My husband wanted her to do an MBA and but she tried everything and she ended up with this. And she's happy. She's terribly stressed out because she doesn't keep quiet. She can't zip up her lips. And gets into, very forthright, very honest. So it's a lot of stress. And the funny thing is, her older daughter, who's a lawyer, who I totally did not expect. 4 years ago, she stood for election and she won also.
Oh, okay.
So they're in 2 different states. Pramila is with the country's governing, the government. like the head office or wherever in Washington, D.C., whereas the older one is federal, at the federal level, at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also taught me a lot, because, they're so far away. And especially my younger daughter has been threatened to be killed, actually.
Oh, what's her name?
Pramila Jayapal.
Okay, your younger daughter. Okay.
And of course, they found a man who was walking around yelling at her and saying, "Go back home, I'm going to shoot you." And they found a gun in his pocket.
Oh.
Yeah, so that fear is there in me, I have to admit. I think that has been more difficult than anything else, not knowing.
Yeah.
You can just walk out of her house to walk the dog and somebody can come, right?
Yes.
That fear is there. But then, when I speak to her, she says, "Mom, if I want to make a difference to the world, I can't do it very easily sitting on, on horseback and doing it." So, and my grandchildren, I have 3 beautiful grandchildren. And I'm saying it, they're sitting in front of me, I can see them as I write. My oldest grandchild is Tara. She's 32. And she is married. She's gay. She's married. And the second one, that is her brother, Joshua, is 28. He's got a job in San Francisco. He was a soccer player. And the last one, Kashi, was born as Janak. She's transitioning into a girl, and she's a musician.
Wow.
So they've all, how shall I say, they're all very clever, but they have followed their own passions.
Yes.
Tara is the yoga teacher.
Wow.
And, I don't know whether you have heard of an American poet called Maya Angelou. Now, Maya Angelou has written, she was an African American, and she has written, let me see if I can remember it. She says that, "I want to have a mission in life," or you should have a mission in life, and you should handle it with a little passion, with a sense of humor, and a sense of style.
Wow. Okay.
And I think my 3 grandchildren have done that.
Beautiful. What was so inspiring about when you spoke about your daughter and grandchildren? Yes, in transactional analysis, we talk about the script. In the transfer of script, there seems to be some freedom for everyone to be unique in the way.
You're very right. You put it very well.
Yeah. And it is also said, like, the grandmother carries the womb for the next 2 generations.
Really?
Really, that's a study also.
I see.
Yeah. So maybe you carried that freedom for them.
Oh, no. I don't think I did.
So that's beautiful to hear how the script freeness also can be transferred from one generation to another generation.
Yeah.
Thank you for this beautiful sharing.
But I had to fight for my freedom. My father would, and I'm supposed to be very mild and gentle, but my father says, "Oh no, outside she looked mild and gentle, but she did exactly what she wanted." My parents were wonderful. My parents, of course, like all parents, we all make mistakes. But
yeah, because the freedom I see is your daughters becoming politicians, which were not part of the history at all. Then the freedom for the grandchildren to be different.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. The script has a seed of uniqueness, is what I see.
Yeah, now that you say it, I realize that.
Yeah.
But what is wonderful, Geethan, is we don't sometimes realize how wonderful people are actually, because, I have a maid, I have a person who helps me. She's been with me for about 16 years. And they've all seen my grandchildren come, right? They've seen them from the time they're small. And we live in a small community, a small street actually, dead-end street. And they've seen these children since they were 3-4 years old. So when Kashi decided that she was going to transition, I was a bit worried. We have not understood or accepted, all of us. It's getting better. But I used to say, now, I hope they don't make any comments about her. I didn't want her to be hurt. So whenever we went walking, I'd hold her hand and, so she's my granddaughter, don't you say anything about her, kind of thing. And I was explaining to the house help, that this is going to happen. So my maid, Baby, her name is Baby. Baby came to me and she said, Amma, and she put her hands on her hips like this. She said, Amma, nobody is going to say anything about your granddaughter. She's my granddaughter also. And she said, I will see that nobody says anything. Because after all, God made him, God made her, God made you, God made me. So I will see to it that nobody remarks on her. You think that people who are not educated don't feel? There's nothing to do with education. It was just the spirit in which you...
Yes.
It was so beautiful. And then they had such a lovely time with her. They'd plait her hair and, put bangles on her. And it was like a party or something happening.
Yeah, I feel so tender hearing to this.
Yes. So I wanted to share that actually.
Yeah.
And right from the beginning, both my daughters said, you are not going to hide this. You're going to tell as many people as... And sometimes I've had some comments. How did you come from a conservative family? How did you tolerate that? What a question of tolerance. They're my grandchildren. That's all there is to it.
And this is very important, Maya. Like, for example, you said, when you walk and you smile at someone, and then they also get a feeling of smiling back. Similarly, when you are able to be in acceptance and share this to as many people as possible, I think another situation where another person in the same situation gets the modeling,
absolutely,
and accepting. So your daughter's expressions are beautiful, and you putting in this in practice is also very important.
Yeah. I attended a special session about the LGBTQ community and transitioning. It just blew my mind here in Bangalore. Yeah. I can't remember. QACP it is called, I think. Queer and something. I did not know how much people could suffer because they're different, how much they're made to suffer rather. Because they're different, that's all it is, they're different. They're not bad, they're not anything, they're living their life, they want a chance to live their lives quietly and with love. But,
because sometimes I also wonder why the society is not able to manage this. I had a client, very young boy, around 20-25, beautiful boy. He was in a gay relationship. They both had a very beautiful understanding. They were having drinks in the bar. There was a group of people who came and thrashed them.
Oh my God. This is the violence which comes up, which is so frightening.
Frightening for me also. And his head was torn to a level that so much of stitches and so much memory loss and all these things. I sometimes wonder why is this anyone is not able to accept what is different apart from who we are or who they are. So this is one challenge.
I wonder if it is because they're different and you're always frightened of something which is different.
And why I mentioned that is you coming across and making this as an open expression makes a difference.
I hope so. Because the children were right from the beginning, they said, don't hide it, just tell everyone, So
Yeah.
actually, I have my granddaughter's wedding photographs are right on the table. And sometimes people look at it and say, oh, your granddaughter is gay? She's married same sex? I said, yeah. And look at them, they're so happy.
Mm. That's the key. They are so happy.
Yeah.
So when your daughters and grandchildren, they are doing well. So I'm curious about your parenting style. So what was your parenting style?
I really don't know. I mean, especially after they became politicians and their names are all over the papers and all that, and their photographs. People ask me, what did you do?
Okay.
Somebody asked me, what do you give them for breakfast? I give them bland idli and sambar, that's all. And dosha. Give anything else. I don't know where it came from. It could have been handed down from my father. Though he was non-political, he was apolitical. He was one of the first Indian officers to be taken into the British police force.
Oh.
And he led a very, sometimes rigid, but very high-minded, with noble aims, totally incorruptible. He was head of the corruption department, totally anti-corruption. And I think it came from that, with the integrity. Because I asked my brother the same thing. I said, what is it that made these two? They're small children, you know. They kind of, but somehow their personality shines through. And so I keep wondering what it is. I think that is part of it. Maybe my husband always wanted them to study. He said, you know, you must study. Like my father told us, he said, it doesn't matter if you don't get married. You have to be independent. You have to make a difference to the world. Maybe it is that. My mother was very gentle, sense of joy, life. You know, she loved life. Maybe it is that. And I would like to think that I gave them the curiosity to examine life. You know, I mean, I prefer to have an experience rather than have another sari. You know, so maybe because they're interested in everything, music, talk, everything. They love life. So I think just lucky, Geethan. Just very, very lucky.
Yes. Yesterday I was hearing to some cricket commentary where they were saying luck favors people who are courageous. So.
That's nice. Yeah. So my parenting style, our parenting style, as you were asking, was, I think, in some ways we had a very difficult time because we went outside India when the children were small. So we had to get used to another culture. We had to decide how much of our culture we wanted to keep. And in the process, do we lose something? Do we gain something? I think, yes, we've lost something, we've gained something also. Yeah.
I think traveling and different culture widens the mind, make it open to receive. And it was very interesting when you said, I gave curiosity. And it needs courage to say something like, study, be independent. Even if you're not getting married, that's okay. Because most of the children script are around what will you do after marriage? Okay, so this is something, a huge script which is written. But for someone to say this is a huge permission for them to explore.
And mind you, as I said, that did cause friction because, you know, for example, I remember one of my daughters at the age of 8, she came and she told her father, she said, Papa, I want to go on a date with this boy. Okay. So he said, what? At the age of 8, you want to go on a date? And she said, yeah, everybody's going on a date. So she didn't know what date was. So I'm just going on a date. Then his first sentence was, we don't even know what job he's going to have. I mean, he was 10 years old. It was so funny. But then he sat and he talked to her and he said, if you go in a group, it's okay. It's not safe for you. You know what? It gets dark and there's some excuse like that. She understood, but she also understood that her father didn't really approve of the idea. So that was, we've had some fights over that sometimes, you know. There's one funny story. I'm sorry, I'm telling you all kinds of stories.
Fine. Yeah.
One funny story. She came down for breakfast. She was 10 years old, 11 years old in Indonesia. She came down for breakfast and she had this T-shirt on her, which said something in French, letters written in French. So I said, what is that, Munna? What have you written on your T-shirt? What have you got on your T-shirt? She said, I said, no, tell me, what is it that you've got on your T-shirt? I'm not letting you go out unless you tell me what it is. So she said, okay, it says sleep with me in French. I said, what? Then she said, but Mama, nobody will understand French. I said, you go and you change that T-shirt right now, otherwise you're not going out of the house. She was so angry. She said, oh, I've got an old-fashioned mother, and why don't you go back to Palakkad where you came from? She's telling me. So I said, I will go back to Palakkad and I will take you with me also. She laughs when she hears that.
Yeah.
You know, very difficult. So you can see how difficult immigration is, how difficult it is for migrants.
Yeah. And I think this friction is important in their development of their identity.
Right.
Sometimes I see when we open a bottle cap and there is a rim, and if that also keeps rotating, you cannot really open it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So sometimes parenting is having that rim slightly having the friction so that it really helps to open up, and then they can enjoy life also. So these frictions are very healthy. Yeah.
But at that time, they cause so much of anguish, you know, especially when your daughter tells you you're old-fashioned, so you go back to your village.
Yeah. So what I see is, what I want to also bring into the viewer's idea is about parenting is a mix of various things like permissions, curiosity, sometimes some kind
tolerance.
of
Yeah.
It's a mixed process, and the parents also need to be flexible in managing various requirements of the child.
Correct. And I think no life is perfect. No parent is perfect. No child is perfect. We have to understand that, right?
Thank you, Maya, for this.
Thank you.
You also said you both have done well, and also even in this 15 years of difficulty with Parkinson and Alzheimer's, you both are still managing it together. So one curiosity comes is how to make marriages work, because I see now in the situation, as sometimes I meet couples also, it's becoming difficult to make a marriage work. So what is your perspective on this?
It's an interesting question, because actually both my children are divorced. One of them, so we've gone through that also. So one of them has married again. She's found a wonderful person. And I liked both my sons-in-law, ex-sons-in-law, but it just didn't work out. And my father told my daughter went and told my father that I'm unhappy. And he just sat down, because he was very fond of that daughter's husband, very fond of him. He just sat down and he said, well, if you're not happy, you just get out of it. So when she got the permission from her grandfather, it gave her so much courage to do that, walking out.
Wow. Permission, the highest potency.
Permission granted, really. And I think my husband and I, you're saying manage. I don't know how we manage. I mean, as I told you, there are days when I feel, what is happening. And I find it difficult to look at him because he was so dynamic. and now he can't, understand what's happening. And mind you, he's much better than many other people. He's happy. He's very happy. Everybody spoils him. So they treat him like a little child, and he loves sweets. So when I'm not looking, he's given extra sweets. It's like a whole household managing one child. It's not easy, particularly because I'm the one that's bearing the brunt, because he doesn't know what's happening. He's just extremely happy, and it makes me happy that he's happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are days when I get up and I feel, what is happening? Why, not why me, but why did this have to happen? Yeah, because we exercised, we ate well, we did everything properly, I think. It has nothing to do with it. It is what it is. It is what it is. I can't change it. Only thing I can change is my attitude, like, everybody says. So, and I have very good friends, and my siblings are very supportive. The children are just absolutely, I've had to manage the money, and I've had to manage these stupid net banking. I did just totally different language, but they have never made me feel stupid. And whatever I ask them to do, they're not impatient. They say, Mom, we don't have the time now. Can I get back to you in 2 days? And in 2 days, they get back to me. And I have a book which is full of instructions, how to order food, how to get Swiggy, all kinds of things. Yeah, Swiggy, and how to Google Pay. Everything is written down.
Oh, wow.
By my children, by my grandchildren, I have everybody's handkerchiefs here. How to open an app, everything is in here.
So beautiful. They have given you a manual.
Yes. Yeah. So it has required some effort on my part, because I hate anything to do with numbers. But I have learned basic things I have learned, and I have a brother who helps me.
Great. Yeah. So what I'm making sense of you being a couple for a long time doesn't put the pressure.
62 years.
62 years. And that is not putting a kind of a pressure onto the children that it is between Maya and her husband. That is different story, and children can have different story. And basically what I also mean is it's not about the marriage, it's about how we relate and how do we have an intimate relationship. I think in any form it can be done. That is good. And what I liked about the way you said is it's not about why am I in this, but what is happening. It's the part of the curiosity. And the sentence which was coming to me is, I think we have heard the sentence saying that, pain is inevitable, but suffering is an option. Yeah. But I sometimes feel even suffering is not an option.
I know. You're right.
One possibility I see is suffer wisely.
How do you suffer wisely, Geethan?
That's the only thing I see is, okay, can I suffer wisely? Because that also seems to be not an option.
Yeah.
So you seem to have included people who can support you through this suffering space, because I think this is humanly inevitable. These things are part of it. But if you can include people, if you can be open about the requirement and be vulnerable to take help, I think this is manageable then.
I think so. I mean, and to just, accept things as there's nothing you can do about it. So you just have to. But the human connection is very important, which we are losing, particularly in India, because the children most of them are going abroad, and you can't blame them because opportunities are there. Like my younger daughter says, I would like to come back. She has strong connections here, and she loves India. She says, I would like to come back, but at the moment, I need to stay there for practical purposes. So it's difficult. So they come twice a year, they come. But how many people can afford to come twice a year also? So, but that human connection is very important. And I think we have that here. You know, if I want a cup of coffee, if I'm feeling low, I can ring up Lakshmi downstairs or somebody else and say, come have a cup of coffee. Or can I come? And we do that in this building.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small building, so we're able to do that. I need the car for half an hour. Can you spare me? You know, so it's nice that way. But we have to work to make it.
Yes, we have to work towards it. It doesn't come on a plate. We have to.
Yeah.
So I was thoroughly enjoying how you are, living your life and who you are. Now I'm going to move towards some professional side of your question, because I'm also a psychotherapist and I'm curious about why Maya chose counseling over psychotherapy.
Yeah, I really don't know why, to be very frank. I do think it's an arbitrary distinction, because most psychotherapists have to be counselors, and there's a lot of psychotherapy in counseling also.
Mm-hmm.
So actually I was trying to remember, I should look through my papers. I think I did counseling, but then later on I studied counseling also, psychotherapy also. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're counseling someone, therapy comes into it, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think the reason, I didn't really know what was the difference between the two, to be very frank. I found everybody was taking psychotherapy. So I think that rebellion in me, I wanted to do something which is different, and I did counseling. And at that time, it seemed to me a little more structured counseling. And I always thought I had to write. So I needed time for that. And maybe I felt that counseling was a little bit easier. I don't know. Frankly, I don't know why.
Yeah. And as you said, I also don't. This is a struggle sometimes the profession brings in as a counselor or a psychotherapist. What I see is change is made by the client, not by the professional. So
absolutely,
client is finding a way to change. You be there.
Yeah.
So
correct.
you do counseling or psychotherapy, for me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Actually, I came across something, it's on my desk, which I came across it only this year, but I give it to each client of mine, and it says, my pledge to you. As your therapist, I won't read out everything. I will not try to fix you. I will not give you advice. I will not tell you what to do. As your therapist, I will remind you that you are not broken. I will give you room to access your own wisdom. I will support you in figuring out what to do. So like what you said earlier, you don't do it. You just provide the access.
Yeah. It's a space. Be there.
That's right. That's
certainly another human being is required, and as a professional.
Yeah, it's a beautiful profession.
Yeah, I also enjoy it.
You get so much, actually.
Yes. And so I see transference and counter-transference as an inevitable part of this engagement with client and therapist. What's your perspective on this, and how do you manage this?
How do I manage what?
Transference and counter-transference.
Oh, the transference. I think it's a beautiful concept that you can trace something back, which is carrying back or carrying in front, maybe. And I personally find it very useful because, see, that space is the most important space. It's a sacred space. And if within that space you can find out what it is that may be the root of what the client wants, and you're role modeling all the time, you're role modeling. So if, for example, my client has a transference to me, that, say, a motherly transference, I feel I can use that transference to maybe portray or maybe make the client understand more of what is happening. and in that process be able to solve whatever he wants to solve. So that is the way and also, for example, maybe she didn't get on with her mother. She felt her mother didn't forgive her. She felt her mother didn't do whatever. By a little bit of role playing, a little bit of understanding, maybe the client can be made to understand that mothers do certain things for certain purposes. So, and then slowly wean away from that.
Yeah.
Because you have to do that also.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're stuck in that transference.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think what I understand from you is to use that as a good material.
Yeah.
We don't have to be scared about this.
Yeah. No.
Because through that transference only the communication is actually exchanged between the client and the therapist.
Correct.
And then the unsurfaced needs can be picked up through that. And then actually the client can become aware of it and use it in their work.
I remember that when I first joined, and we hadn't done transferences yet, something happened. I was angry with Saru. And Saru said, incidentally, she was a tremendous influence on my life. So she said, don't get angry with me, Maya. I'm not your father. Where on earth did that come from? How she doesn't know my father. And I didn't know that this was what was happening inside me. So it was such a learning experience for me. And the way she used it to tell me that, just because I couldn't get on with my dad doesn't mean I have to put everybody's face on his. He's different. Everybody's different.
Yeah, this is, but the transference carries the potential for change also.
Yeah. Definitely. That's a nice way of putting it. Carries the potential for change.
I think it was, I felt a great conversation today.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add to the conversation today?
No, I think I would just like to remember Maya Angelou's words that have a mission in life with a little passion, with a little sense of humor, and with a sense of style, then your life is not completely okay, but almost okay.
Okay, if the life is not okay, I think we can manage that with the style also.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Geethan.